Joshua with Think Liberty, and today we're joined by Randall Lord. Randall was a doctor of chiropractic, a former libertarian candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, and he, along with his son, is facing 46 months in federal prison for selling, trading, and buying cryptocurrency. How you doing today, Randall? Probably not great.
Well, the way I look at it, every day outside of prison is a good day.
Yeah, so. I can imagine. So why don't we talk a little bit about how you were drawn to cryptocurrency and how you got so deep into it?
Okay. It was some years ago. My son approached me with the idea of getting involved in something he called Bitcoin, and I said, well, what's that? Of course, I'd never heard anything about any cryptocurrencies and never even heard the word cryptocurrency before. But he explained to me a little bit about it or what he knew about it. And he gave me some links and I looked it up and I said, hey, this sounds kind of interesting. I like the idea that you take back control of your financial life, that if you want to send some money to somebody else, the government's not involved, that the government is not the originator of the currency, that the central bank is involved. I liked all those ideas about that. So I said, sure, let's explore this some more. And so we first started off back in the early days of just simply mining Bitcoin, with computers and stuff. And after we'd mined for a while, we said, well, what do we do with it now? I guess we have to sell it, So you don't just sit on it, because we have expenses. It costs a lot of electricity to run all those miners and, all those computers and things. Right. And so, but after a while of doing that, we realized, hey, we could just simply buy and sell Bitcoin. We don't even have to mine it, So we kind of slowly changed away from mining into just the buying and selling.
Right.
And that seemed to be going just fine. People liked our service. We didn't rip anybody off. We treated people like the way we wanted to be treated. So it was going good. Even though, with something like Bitcoin, there are lots of scammers out there, and there were constantly people trying to scam us out of our Bitcoins, and some were actually managed to do it, But anytime we would find that one of our customers was involved in anything like that, we'd eventually just cut them off. We didn't need that kind of trouble. We didn't want to be dealing with those kind of people.
So you had a site called Local Bitcoins. Was it technically a centralized Bitcoin exchange, or?
It's just simply Local Bitcoins was just a website where people who could get together who want to buy or sell Bitcoin. You say, hey, I've got 10 Bitcoins for sale. Or, here's what I'd like for it. And if somebody wanted to buy from you, they'd do it. So right. That's primarily how we were buying and selling.
So let's talk about your story a little bit. Why are you being charged with a crime for dealing in cryptocurrency?
Well, we found out that in 2013, the Treasury Department issued what they called a guidance saying that anyone who's buying and selling Bitcoin, they were now considering that to be a money service business, and they said in that guidance that you would have to be registered with FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Network of the Treasury Department, and also that if you lived in a state that required a license for a money service business, you had to get a license from that state as well. And of course, when we first started, that didn't exist, and we didn't find out about it until quite a bit later. In fact, one of the large exchanges we were buying our Bitcoins from notified us, said, "Hey, you guys got to have a registration with FinCEN and a license and stuff." And so I looked into it, and I went ahead and registered with FinCEN, and I looked at the state statutes regarding money service businesses, and I said, this doesn't really apply to us, because under our state statute it said that buying and selling of currency, well, they define currency as being issued by a state or a government. I said, well, since we're not doing that, we're not really a money service business because we're not cashing checks, we're not transmitting money, we're not doing any of the things that money service businesses do. And so I determined, we don't need that. So anyway, we continued on, and then about in late 2014, the exchange that had first alerted us about it said, we can't find your registration, because they were trying to look up my registration number online. And I said, well, that's weird, because I know I registered back in June. So sure enough, I went and started looking for it myself, and I couldn't find where my name was registered with FinCEN. And so I figured, well, something must have happened. I don't know what, but so I had to register all over again. And it's kind of there's a number of pages that you have to go through, and the registration is completely online. You're on the U.S. Treasury Department's website, and they just ask you, a number of questions and things, and it takes a little while to do that. But anyway, I finally got that taken care of, got my registration number, gave it to the exchanger that we were dealing with, and everything was fine, or so I thought. Then the next summer in 2015, I think it was I've forgotten now. I think it was July of 2015. A few federal agents show up at my house asking lots of questions, and we're going, what in the world's going on? And within a few months, so anyway, after that happened, we went ahead and hired an attorney, to protect our interests. So within a few months, though, our attorney gets a notice that we are being indicted in federal court, and that's been really quite an emotional roller coaster, I'm sure, as you can imagine. To have to go through all that. And once we got the indictment, of course, we were able to see what their concerns were. Before that, we didn't really know what they were looking at. But after you get the indictment, it lays out all the different charges, all the things they say you did, and all the laws that they say you violated and all that. And so I realized that this is going to be a very highly technical case involving finance law and various other things like that. And I realized, well, I don't think my attorney's really up to that area of law very good. So my son and I went around looking or interviewing some other attorneys around the state who we thought probably could defend us adequately. And every one of them that was interested in our case told us, just to start, the retainer was going to be $250,000. We're going, oh, yeah. Well, we don't have anywhere near that kind of money to defend ourselves. So we had to go back to the original lawyer and say, well, you're going to have to take it because we can't afford all these others, And that's kind of a predicament you get in, is the government has unlimited funds to prosecute you, but you don't have unlimited funds to defend yourself. Right. So, we went on through that, and eventually we got to the point where they ask you to enter a plea. But of course, before you enter the plea, they give you a plea deal. They say, look, if you'll plead guilty to count one, we'll make all the other counts go away, because they charge you with everything that they can think of. Of course. And they're holding you to the standards of being a bank. And, it was just me and my son, we're not a bank. We're not a financial institution. We just buy and sell Bitcoin. That's all we did, So anyway, they would try to hold us to those kind of standards that a bank would be imposed on. And, so they said, well, anyway, if you plead guilty to count one, which was the conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money service business, we'll make all the other counts go away, at sentencing. And so I thought, well, we never really conspired to operate a money service business without a license, but what else can we do? If we fight everything, it's going to cost a tremendous amount of money. If we fight and lose, the amount of time that we would get, the penalty would be increased dramatically. And our attorney convinced us that you guys have been good so far you don't have any or a criminal record or anything, chances are they wouldn't do very much to you. They might even give you home confinement or something, And of course I have a family to think about. And I said, well, at least that way I could still be here for them instead of being off in prison somewhere. And so he said, and he also convinced me that, well, you had misread or misunderstood the law regarding having a license. Because, I'm not an attorney, but the language of the law to me had appeared to be saying that I didn't need to have a license. And I don't have one. So I said, well, I guess I could plead guilty to that one. So I did plead guilty to not having a license. And anyway, after I did that, then a few months later, I was thinking about it, and it was really bothering me. And so I contacted the Office of Financial Institutions here in the state of Louisiana. That's the division of our government that would license a money service business. And I asked them, point blank, here's my business model. I was just buying and selling Bitcoins. Am I required to have a license? And they said, no, you're not, because Bitcoin is not a currency under state law.
Exactly.
And I said, yeah, that's what I've been saying all along. So I contacted my attorney immediately and told him, hey, look, I think we need to withdraw our plea. I can now prove that we didn't operate an unlicensed money service business,
Or conspired.
So, yeah. So, we entered the plea to withdraw or the motion to withdraw our plea. And the government took quite a long time to answer that. And after about a month, they came back with this really long answer to that motion. And the bottom line was they were saying, no, we're not going to allow you to withdraw your plea because it would be inconvenient to the court. And we thought, what? Since when is the court here for my convenience, or since when am I here for the court's convenience? That I thought the court was supposed to serve the public, not the public to serve the court. But be that as it may, we had anyway. They said no, so we had to go on through sentencing, and it was apparent to us very quickly during sentencing that the judge was going to give us the maximum penalty he could. See, in federal court, when you make a plea deal like that, even though you don't go to trial with all those other issues, they count up all those other issues as though they were true and that you had done all those other things, and they assign points against you for all that other activity that they charged you with. Right. And so when they add up all the points, it's pretty high, So, I just felt that was completely unfair. I said, well, wait a minute, nobody ever told me any of that, that when I plead guilty to count one, that all for my sentence, that doesn't seem fair because we didn't go to trial on all those other issues. Right. Nobody had to prove anything. But anyway, the judge ended up giving us both 46 months for operating or for conspiring to operate an unlicensed money service business. So that's where we are today. And now I've got about 9 days left before I have to report to a federal penitentiary to start serving my sentence.
So just to clear things up for people who may not understand, money servicing business, what exactly is that?
A money service business is a business that you can probably think of it like some place like Western Union, where they cash checks, they transmit money for you, or they can exchange currency. Those are the three main things a money service business does. For example, if you can go to the Walmart Money Center and you can send money, say, from California to your friend in New York, that's money transmission. If they cash checks, that's a money service business. Those kind of activities are money service business. But we weren't doing any of those things. Well, the government tried to redefine what we were doing as though it were a currency exchange or a money transmission. They were trying to say that if you bought Bitcoins from me and I sent those Bitcoins back to you, that's money transmission. That at the federal law, the law is a little bit vague, which gives them a lot of wiggle room.
Right.
Normally, money transmission is to send your money or your funds to some other person in some other location, not simply sending it back to yourself in a different form. But that's how the government sees it. They try to redefine Bitcoin as though it were a currency, even though no government agency accepts it as being a currency. In fact, the IRS, calls it a commodity or a property, and no agency yet considers Bitcoin to be a currency. In fact, there was a case somewhat similar to this in Florida, I believe it was last year, and he was charged with the same kind of thing. And the court there said, well, since money, Bitcoin's not money, it's not money transmission, and he was also charged with money laundering. They said, well, Bitcoin's not money, therefore it's not money laundering. It's the same kind of things here, except his was at a state level and ours is at the federal level.
Right. And
the federal laws are worded a little bit more vague, so they can interpret and reinterpret them any way they want to, basically. And that's what's happening here is that a federal or an executive agency, the Treasury Department, is redefining the statutes that Congress passed. And I think that's completely unfair. It's up to Congress, according to our Constitution, to establish and write our laws, not a federal agency to reinterpret or change what the Congress intended.
So, as libertarians, obviously, we're familiar with the overreach of the federal government, and we also know that things such as cryptocurrency can be a threat to those people. Do you think that this is? Do you think that this is a case of them trying to make an example of you?
Oh, I'm almost absolutely certain that that's what the judge was trying to do, and because he talked about that a little bit during sentencing, it was apparent that he was very much afraid of people using things like Bitcoins that is beyond the grasp or the tracking ability of the federal government. They know that if Bitcoin becomes big, the central bank or the Federal Reserve will lose control of our financial situation in the United States, and they're very much afraid of that. So, yeah, he wanted to make an example of us. Even though we had 0 victims to our alleged crime, he didn't care. He was just, wanting to use us or set a precedent so that can be used in other cases.
Right. So I was doing some reading on the laws. I'm a little bit familiar with cryptocurrency. I have the Coinbase app. So right. I'm just kind of getting into this stuff. And it seems that the difference between exchangers of currency and money servicing business are really, really, really vague.
Yes, they are.
And the laws revolving around those seem to vary state from state. And federal laws, obviously, like you said, they're worded very, very fuzzy.
Yes.
What were all the concrete laws, the charges, the actual wording on the charges that they initially charged you guys with?
Let's say, I was charged with, there were 14 different counts in the original indictment. They tried to say that count 1 was conspiring to operate an unlicensed money service business. Count 2 was the actual operating of an unlicensed money service business. I believe counts 3, 4, and 5 were, I think failing to file a suspicious activities report with the government. In other words, what they wanted to do is they want Bitcoin exchangers to become unpaid snitches for the government.
Right, and that's why they ask you to file with the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement.
Right. That's right. And they're saying, well, we didn't file all the forms we should have filed on some of our transactions, and therefore, because we didn't do that, that we're involved in money laundering, and they just invent all kinds of things that you did, So just in case you're able to beat them on one point, it might be difficult to beat them on the second or the third or fifth or whatever, So yeah, they hit you with a tidal wave.
Oh, Randall, you there? I'm losing you.
Is it breaking up?
Let's see. You're coming back slowly.
Oh, that's weird. You're fine at my end.
Oh, yeah. I'm sitting right next to the router.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're back now. So you start, if you could just start at tidal wave and then go on.
Oh, yeah. So it's just a tidal wave of laws and allegations that they make against you to make it almost impossible for you to defend yourself. And also, it's kind of like they throw everything they can against the wall and just see what sticks, hoping. And all they have to do is get one thing to stick, and you're done.
I mean, that's the federal government way. Correct?
Yeah, right.
So obviously, you're checking dates within 9 days. I mean, it's coming up real fast. What is the timeline for your appeals to this verdict, and are you pushing appeals?
Yes, my attorney just filed to notify the court that we do intend to appeal. That we had to do that within a certain amount of time between sentencing and afterwards. I don't know what the time frame is between sentencing and how long you have before you can even notify the court that you intend to appeal. But there is a timeline, a deadline there, and we're well within that. So we filed the paperwork today, I believe, that we intend to appeal all this case, and we're not just going to appeal, the issue of them not allowing us to withdraw our guilty plea, but we're also going to be appealing the harsh sentence. I mean, the sentence is just completely out of proportion to what we did.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously it's a harsh punishment for a victimless crime.
Right.
The crime of
especially since we weren't even aware we were, there was no intent to be committing a crime. We weren't even aware that we were doing anything wrong.
Right. Well, and it sounds like, when you called your local office there, they not only did they tell you that the crime you're being charged with, you didn't actually commit.
Right.
Without intent, how can you conspire?
Exactly. That's going to be one of the basis for the appeal, is that the first thing is that the government never produced any evidence at all that we conspired to do anything. They don't have any recordings, any email messages between me and my son that we said, "Hey, look, let's just run this business without a license, even though we're required to." They have nothing like that at all. All they have is the proof that we ran a business.
Right. Is so with an appeal of this nature? Is this something that they can drag out for years?
Yes, yeah, it could be quite a long time, and of course, one of the things we're asking is that the court allow us not to be imprisoned until this is heard. We don't know if they'll agree to that or not.
Right.
It'd be absolutely crazy for you to be in prison and your appeals process is going on, and then they say, "Oh yeah, you were right. You can go home now."
Right. Right. We can't put that past the federal government, though.
No, we can't, and I don't. I suspect they will grant me a little bit more time, maybe a few more weeks before I have to report. But I'm almost certain that I'm going to have to report before the appeals process really gets going good.
Right. Have you tried any other avenues? Have you written to senator or?
No, I haven't written to any other politicians. I'm just simply trying to find a new attorney now who really understands this case and can defend it properly. Don't get me wrong. I like the guy that was our attorney, but I just feel this was completely over his head. And you don't find out about that until you're sitting there in court when he's, fumbling around and can't find the right paper that he wants to talk about, and he's not making good arguments. He's not cross-examining very well. It's too late by then.
Right, absolutely, and the financial crimes courts. That's a very intricate court with that involves the devil's language, or numbers, as I like to call it.
Exactly.
So yeah, I can imagine that's got to be quite a nightmare trying to find a lawyer who even knows what he's talking about for those kind of those white collar crimes or whatever.
Right. If I lived in a really large city like Dallas, Texas, or Los Angeles, California, I'm sure I could find a good law firm that could handle something like this. But where I am, they don't see this kind of stuff,
Right. And I did some reading about that as well, and said, these types of cases usually come down to what kind of lawyer you have.
That's yeah. I can, based on my experience, that's very much true in this case. Uh, I feel like I've just been railroaded, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I can't imagine, but I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what other steps can you take? Is there anything else you can do? I mean, have you tried to start any kind of petitions or anything of that nature?
Well, the only thing I've been doing is talking to other people like you, so that at least the public is aware that the how the government operates. You know how they're really seems to be targeting people who are dealing in cryptocurrencies right now, and they're really holding them to the fire on every little dot and tittle of the law. They're really interpreting their law the way they want to, and very narrowly, if they can get you. So I
Well,
just say be careful if you're dealing with
it's
cryptos.
it's a sad day, and
Yeah.
in what's supposed to be the most free country, and we're not even allowed to have free and fair exchange of goods and services. So,
Right. They want the government wants absolute control over your financial life. They want to be able to monitor everything you do. I mean, this is 1984. The government spies on you constantly,
right.
without a warrant. They don't even care if you're committing a crime or not. They think they have the right to just monitor everything you do, and that if you object to it, they'll try to make you feel guilty and say, "Oh, well, you must be doing something wrong if you don't want us spying on you."
Right.
Which is just ridiculous. And you brought up something earlier that reminded me that something I read online the other day was that Americans, at least regarding the cryptocurrencies, are the most constrained people in the world. We're not the most free regarding cryptocurrencies because we can only buy and sell from about 3 different exchanges in the United States. We can't even buy and sell from any of the overseas exchanges, whereas everybody else in the world, they can buy from wherever they want to.
Right. Right.
They're really cracking down and making sure that that they don't lose control of us.
So these exchanges you were doing, these weren't like deep web exchanges. I mean, these were out
No,
public.
no. One of the exchanges that I would buy from was Coinbase.
Right.
In fact, they're the ones that alerted me that I needed the license and the registration.
Right. And so they said even to just exchange Bitcoin, you had to register with the Financial Crimes Enforcement.
Right. And one of the things, if my son and I had really been trying to do deep web stuff, or trying to keep all this secret, we wouldn't have done all the transactions through our bank, where we knew the government could see it at any time they wanted to see it. We weren't trying to be sneaky.
Obviously not conspiring.
No, obviously not. In fact, and that's one of the things that during the sentencing at the very end, when you do your elocution, when you get to tell the judge your side of the story, it was one of the things I said to him. I said, if anything, my son and I tried to conspire to not violate the law, and I pointed out some of the evidence that the government had, where my son and I were talking back and forth about where I thought I had registered.
Right.
We wouldn't be talking about that if I never would have registered if we were trying to be crooks.
Certainly wouldn't have registered again. I mean, it sounds, to me, I'm obviously not a lawyer. I obviously don't work in financial crimes, but you registered with the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. You were completely transparent and open about it. You weren't doing deep web. You weren't laundering money.
Right.
You weren't conspiring. I don't understand why there's any kind of crime. And obviously, us at Think Liberty hope that your appeals come through swiftly.
I hope so too.
Yeah,
but I feel like if I can get my my guilty plea withdrawn and actually go to trial over count 1, I think I can beat that.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you should be able to, and it sounds like that. They obviously were looking for anything to stick to you, like you said, and when they realized you were gonna go for one of those, they gave you the maximum.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's really all the questions I got for you. I really want to get this story out as soon as possible. I want people to understand that, the federal government, us as libertarians, obviously we understand that the federal government oversteps their bounds quite frequently, but I think
Let me talk about that for just a minute, because that's probably the most important thing of this whole thing, is that the government feels they have no bounds. Even though the Constitution was designed for a limited federal government, once the federal government gets to decide the limits of their own power and can redefine laws and terms and words, there are no bounds. They can do whatever they want. And that's what's happening. Our liberties are being stripped away very quickly by, I'm sure some of them are very well-meaning people, but they're still being stripped away.
Well, absolutely. And I think, you're a testament to that every day. And hopefully get the story out will open some eyes, because the only way we're ever going to be able to get through this kind of shit is to obviously band together and see what's going on together.
Right.
So.
Right.
Well, Randall, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I can't wait to get this interview out for people and hopefully get your story heard. Maybe we can start a petition for the state I guess the federal government.
Just the federal government, yeah. The state of Louisiana has no problem with what I did.
Of course not. Of course not. Why would they?
Right.
Why would anybody have a problem with somebody who just wants to exchange goods and services with another person?
Right. And further, why am I being charged for something when, if had I done it for free, there would be no crime?
Exactly. Exactly. Because the government doesn't get their cut, and that's exactly why.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on our show, Randall. Thank you guys for checking us out. Make sure you check us out at the website at think-liberty.com. Check out our sponsors at anarchothreads.com, and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Think Liberty TV. And thank you again, Randall. We really appreciate you coming on.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're definitely going to be rooting for you in the good fight, and hope that you get through this.
I appreciate it.
All right.